What's up guys, it's Naf here. So prayer is an important skill for Ironman, as it is the skill required for what I would believe is one of the most important unlocks in the game for Ironman, the prayer soul split. And obviously it offers many other benefits, such as stat boosting prayers, and is seen as a high level quest requirement in a number of important quests such as Plague's End. So for new Ironman, I would actually say prayer is one of the hardest skills to level, as there really aren't many options out there. So first off, we'll be taking a look at quests. Now, unlike most skills, you can actually get decent amounts of prayer experience from quests while still being at level 1 prayer, meaning you can skip the lower levels of prayer training and helping yourself out with the mid-level prayer grind, which we will discuss shortly. So there's a large list of quests that give prayer experience. Looking through them, I did find a number of quests that gave decent prayer experience and also had close to no requirements. Restless Ghost, giving 1,250 prayer experience. Priest in Peril, giving 1,406 prayer experience, although you must be able to kill a level 33 enemy and have access to Rune or Pure Essence. Recruitment Drive, giving 1,000 prayer XP, and requires level 8 prayer and also the completion of the quest Druidic Ritual. Holy Grail, giving 11,000 prayer experience, and requires the completion of the quest Merlin's Crystal, which does require 30 attack and the ability to kill a level 39 enemy. Mountain Daughter gives 2,000 prayer experience and requires 20 agility and the ability to kill a level 32 enemy. And lastly, Ghosts Ahoy, which gives 2,400 prayer experience and also the item Ectophile, but does require the completion of Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, and also requires 20 cooking and 25 agility. Now, unlocking the Ectophile is rather important, as it dramatically speeds up the process of farming Ecto tokens. Now, why you would want to do this? Well, 5,000 Ecto tokens are required to purchase the full First Age outfit, which is the prayer skilling outfit that gives 6% bonus prayer experience, which you will want whenever you're getting prayer experience from using bones on an altar, or even the Ectofuntus, or cleansing crystals. But outside of those, there are even more quests that give prayer experience in small and large amounts. Those are the ones I just felt were worth being aware of as a new Ironman. Now, if quests aren't your thing, there are two main methods of grinding through the low levels that I found. They are the Nexus and also using bones at the Wilderness Altar. So first, looking at the Nexus. So this content was designed for group play, and from what I could see searching online and also through checking many populated worlds, the Nexus is certainly dead. Now this doesn't mean you can't train here, but merely won't get anywhere near as good as experience as you potentially could if it had 4 or more people. Now for people who haven't done the Nexus before, it is fairly simple. You just need to head to Lumbridge Swamp and talk to Eusondria, who will give you a charmed sack. And with that you can begin training. To do this, you simply click the Nexus in the middle until the charmed sack is full, which doesn't take any longer than about 20 seconds or so, and then you click one of the bowls on one of the 4 surrounding pillars. Now, if you were doing this with a group, which bowl and pillar you would use would actually have significance, but when doing it solo, you aren't actually able to fully complete this minigame, and to gain experience, you just simply have to repeat that process. Now, there are pros and cons to this training method. The pros are the fact it has no requirements, meaning you can come here as soon as you make your Ironman and level your prayer. And the other main benefit is the fact it's quite AFK, only needing to click once to collect from the Nexus, and then again on a bowl to empty what you've collected, making it a pretty thoughtless and relaxing training method. Now for the cons. So throughout my 30 minutes training here, I was more or less always sitting between 13 to 16k XP per hour. Now that sounds good for a low level, but the experience gains here actually scale to your level, as seen on this chart. So what this means is starting out here, the experience will actually be extremely slow, most likely not even breaking a few thousand experience per hour until you start to get a few prayer levels. Now, the second downside of this training method is there is a cap of 37,224 prayer experience, meaning once you have gained that amount of experience here, you can no longer get experience at the Nexus at all. Now that is still enough to go all the way from level 1 to 40 prayer, but nonetheless it's still an annoying limitation. And the alternative method of leveling up prayer for a new Ironman is the Wilderness Altar. Now this method is quite the opposite to the Nexus as it's very un-AFK, and this method does simply involve looting all the bones surrounding the Chaos Altar, and once they've all been picked up, you just use them on the altar, getting 16 experience per bone. So doing this for around 30 minutes, I did stay between about 12 to 15k experience per hour, making it technically more efficient than soloing the Nexus, although it doesn't come without its drawbacks. So the first con is it is in the level 11 to 12 wilderness, meaning if for whatever reason someone else is in the wilderness on a low level character, they can kill you, making this method not really worthwhile for a hardcore Ironman. Next is it's obviously quite click intensive. Now if you are using the group loot method like I was, it does greatly reduce the amount of clicking involved, but nonetheless when compared to the Nexus, it still requires a lot more effort and attention. But out of the two methods, using bones on the Chaos Altar is undoubtedly better experience per hour at lower levels until you reach level 39 Prayer, which is the highest threshold at the Nexus to get the most experience per hour, and even then it's still got the limitation of 37,000 Prayer experience. So the next method of leveling Prayer, which is relevant for both low and high level Prayer training, is the Nemi Forest. So this is a daily distraction and diversion on Mazcab, which gives experience in dungeoneering, farming, mining, and prayer. Now to quickly explain how it works for anyone who hasn't done this D&D, essentially each world will have a randomly generated Nemi Forest, which is generated when at least one person enters the forest on that world. And the forest will have one dungeoneering node, one mining node, 3 farming nodes, and 4 prayer nodes. And every day you're able to interact with each unique node once, and each time will give you an experience for that specific skill. Now the most efficient way of doing this minigame is to visit the Nemi Forest Reddit, where a person will be camping in the Nemi Forest on a certain world with an image showing exactly where each node is on the map, meaning everyone can go there and click each node as efficiently as possible. So this minigame has no requirements whatsoever, but the prayer experience given does scale with your prayer level. So if you are a new Ironman, you may want to get a few prayer levels through the other methods before you do the Nemi Forest for that day to get more value out of the daily. But regardless, the Nemi Forest will give you at least one prayer level daily all the way up until level 43 prayer. So it's certainly something that's worthwhile to do daily up until the highest levels of prayer training. And even then you should continue to try do the Nemi Forest daily because of the additional experience it offers in other skills as well. And next, for the low levels, a final method of getting through those prayer levels is the monthly D&D, God Statues. So this is a construction, distraction, and diversion where you will build statues that either appease the locals or aggravate them if you choose the incorrect God statue. Now this decision affects whether you get prayer or slayer experience, so if you are looking for prayer experience, always make sure to make the correct God statue for that area, which will be indicated to you in game. Now as a low level, you will have access to 4 God statues, and the amount of prayer experience scales to your level, and the experience is the amount of a medium experience lamp. So similar to the Nemi Forest, you probably want to do a bit of prayer training first, and not do this at level 1 prayer, as the experience won't be anywhere near as rewarding as if you did it even a few levels later. But unlike the Nemi Forest, this is a monthly D&D, not a daily, so you have a lot more time to work on prayer before needing to do this. And on a quick note, prayer experience from both of those D&Ds are not increased by the 6% bonus from the prayer outfit. So in terms of very low level prayer training, those are your best options, outside of simply killing monsters to train your combat and burying their bones. Now taking a look at higher level methods, first off we have killing green dragons for their dragon bones. So this method involves killing the green dragons found in the 4-3 dungeon west of the wilderness lodestone, so yes, this will count as the wilderness. Now to do this, you want at least 60 magic and 37 prayer, with no other stats being required, but if you have defense levels, you can buy Imphide, Spider Silk or Batwing armor for close to nothing from the Port Sarum rune store, but again it isn't really needed as the Protect from Magic spell will mitigate nearly all of the damage you're taking. Now in regards to your prayer points, when you're full of dragon bones you need to teleport out. A Ring of Kinship is great for this since it's free with no charges. Once you've done this, you want to teleport to Canifis and restore your prayer points at the God statue you create during the God statue D&D, and then you simply teleport again to the Wilderness Lodestone and repeat. Now, I personally recommend 60 prayer for a God Staff, which is easily gotten from the Mage Arena minigame, and the only risk involved is whatever bones you have on you if a PKer happens to come. Although in my experience, nearly all PKers around that area are very high level players heading to the Revenants to either PK or farm the Revenants themselves. Along with that, you can get away not using runes at all if you are on manual mode and physically using every ability yourself, although I personally just used a Mystic Air Staff, but considering I am 99 magic, you may not be able to get away with using a weapon lower than tier 60. Now, in terms of prayer experience from this method, I was personally able to get a little over 220 bones in an hour using nothing but a Mystic Air Staff. So at low levels, as long as you are using a tier 60 weapon, you shouldn't really struggle to get around 200 Dragon Bones an hour. Now, 200 Dragon Bones an hour does equate to 50,400 prayer experience if you are using that on a lit Gilded Altar, Ectofuntus, or the Chaos Altar in the Wilderness. Now, of course, you have to go ahead and use them, but doing that, especially at the Chaos Altar, is extremely quick, and if you were to factor in that time it takes to collect the bones and also use them, it would still most likely average out to around 40k prayer experience an hour. Now, outside of farming Dragon Bones and doing the monthly and daily D&D, the mid-level training methods were pretty bare. So I did test out the viability of training prayer through Bonecrusher. Now, Bonecrusher requires level 21 prayer and dungeoneering to use, and also level 62 dungeoneering just to accumulate the 34,000 dungeoneering tokens required to purchase it. So I did test out a number of monsters, such as Hellhounds, Bloodbelds, Dagonoths, and Hill Giants, and pretty quickly found, even with a high gear setup, wasn't able to ever get more than around 14k prayer experience an hour, which was in fact at Hill Giants. So for that reason, for low to mid levels, it certainly isn't worth considering or rushing to get a Bonecrusher, unless you've done a lot of dungeoneering and want to use it in combination with the necklaces from dungeoneering that give prayer points back when burying bones. So moving on to the more higher level methods of training prayer, first we have the Frost Dragons for non-questers. So this method simply requires 85 dungeoneering to unlock the Frost Dragon dungeon, and a minimum of 60 attack for dragon daggers or better stab weapons, along with armor around tier 60 being preferred, but obviously lower sets of armor will just mean you need more food. Options such as War Priest or Void are fine here, and other than that, the method is simply killing the Frost Dragons and banking their bones, with there being an altar above the entrance just south of the Port Sarum Lodestone. So if you don't have access to prayer potions, you can simply bank and come back whenever you run out of prayer points, always using Protect from Magic as it is a must. Now, I tested this in Guthans, which is tier 70, banking the bones without a Beast of Burden just to try keep the test somewhat relatable. Now, over the course of an hour, I did manage a total of 178 Frost Dragon Bones, which does equate to 112,140 prayer experience, not factoring in the time to use them on an altar, but of course this experience per hour could be further increased with a Beast of Burden. Next we'll be taking a look at killing Frost Dragons again, but instead using a Bonecrusher with a Dragon Rider Amulet, which does require the completion of the quest One of a Kind. Now, one of my earliest videos was actually a very basic guide on doing this, so I simply used the results from that video instead of testing it over an hour again. So although my gear was basically the same, keep in mind that my stats were around the 80s at this point. So doing this, I did manage to get around 85,000 prayer experience in an hour, meaning it actually turns out being slightly less experience than banking the bones, especially if you did happen to have a Beast of Burden. So based off of that, the only reason you'd want to kill Frost Dragons with a Dragon Rider Amulet and Bonecrusher would be for the big difference in combat experience. Comparing both hours, I did get around 100,000 more combat experience when not banking, which does make sense considering you're spending the full hour killing Frost Dragons instead of a portion of that time running to and from the bank. Next high level method of training prayer, we have Cleansing Crystals. So this method is extremely simple, in that it only requires you to have access to Prifddinas, and therefore have completed Plague's End, and to already have 75 prayer. So for this method, you buy cleansing crystals from the Heffen monks, nearby the corrupted Seren Stone, and you use those cleansing crystals to cleanse the corrupted Seren Stone. So doing this will give you a baseline 284,200 prayer experience per hour. costing 3,190,000 GP per hour, which does equate to 11.22 GP per XP. Now, this can be increased by 6% at all times by wearing the prayer skilling outfit, and then further increased by an additional 20% experience during Heffen Hour. Now, for those unfamiliar with Prifddinas, essentially every hour there will be a Voice of Seren, which gives bonuses to doing skills in 2 of the clan districts. So if you are looking to grind out a lot of prayer experience, but wanting to do so spending as little gold as possible, you may want to only train prayer here during Heffen Hour. Doing this will give you 352,800 prayer experience per hour at a rate of 9.35 GP per XP. And again, that can be further increased with a 6% benefit from the First Age outfit, giving you 373,968,000 experience per hour at a rate of 8.83 GP per XP. So going for 99 prayer from 75 prayer would cost you 132.8 million GP without any benefit whatsoever from Heffen Hour or the First Age outfit. It would cost 125.3 million GP with the First Age outfit without any benefit from the Heffen Hour. It would cost 110.7 million GP without the First Age outfit, but only training prayer during Heffen Hour. And lastly, with both the First Age outfit and only training prayer during Heffen Hours, going from 75 to 99 prayer would cost 105.4 million GP, saving you nearly 30 million GP in comparison to if you were to do this method with no XP bonuses whatsoever. And the final main method of training prayer for Ironman is through killing Vyrewatch. Now, this method is the most requirement heavy, requiring the completion of River of Blood and the entire MyQ quest series that comes before it. And if you are looking to get the most experience out of this method, or even AFK, you do require 92 prayer for Soul Split, and also to have completed the Mauritania Elite tasks for the Mauritania Legs 4, which give you an extra 50% prayer experience and also fire making experience. So there's various ways you can go about taking on Vyres. So first we'll look at the most efficient method, being the non-AFK and what I would consider intense spot. So this is located here, which allows you to be near as many Vyre spawns as possible and hit as many Vyres as possible with AoE abilities. Now this spot will allow you to get upwards of 600k combat experience per hour, 350k prayer experience per hour, 250k fire making experience per hour, and lastly 90k farming experience per hour. Now the biggest drawback of this spot is it does require Soul Split. Otherwise, the damage you will be taking will go through your food too quickly to be worthwhile, and also does require you to drink prayer restoration potions, as this spot is located rather far away from the altar. Now the less intense and more AFK spot is located here, between these 2 trees against the wall of this building. So this spot is only situated near 2 spawns and will occasionally have a third Vyrewatch coming over as well. Now this spot results in less kills and therefore less experience and loot, but regardless it was my choice when grinding out 99 prayer, fire making and farming, and gave me around 300k combat experience, 145k prayer experience, 105k fire making experience, and 45k farming experience per hour. Now, just a note, the farming experience can only be gotten if you do have a seed aside and at least 74 farming. So the big differences between this spot and the previous are obviously quite a drop in experience and the loot, for the trade-off of being AFK, very low chance of death in much lower gear setups, and unlimited prayer points through the use of the altar, which is now very close. Along with that, this spot is completely viable with or without Soul Split. Without Soul Split, you do want to protect from magic and will need food, but even the bank is quite close, so it isn't a big issue either. But regardless, either spot gives great experience and a ton of valuable drops for Ironman. As an example, quickly taking a look at my loot from doing roughly 143 hours at Vyres in the process of maxing. And as you can see, pretty much every drop is really useful. Quite frankly, I would go as far as saying this method of training prayer, in comparison to everything else discussed previously, is the best and borderline overpowered for Ironman, so definitely give this a go if you can manage to complete the quest River of Blood. And lastly, I did quickly want to touch on getting prayer experience through bossing, although nowhere near as in-depth as I did with my fletching guide, because pretty much all the previous methods have been forms of PVM, and due to the Heffen method only requiring gold, really anything that gives good gold per hour such as gargoyles, could technically be farmed to supplement the gold you need to get prayer experience. So the two bosses I wanted to highlight are yet again from Gold Wars Dungeon 2. They are Vindicta and Twin Furies. So looking at Vindicta, she does drop between 155 to 250 noted dragon bones at a common rate, and over my 25 hours killing the boss, I managed a total of 6,932 dragon bones, which does equate to 277 dragon bones an hour. And converting that into prayer experience, it does come to 69,875 prayer experience an hour. And then we have the Twin Furies. They do drop between 163 to 249 noted infernal ashes at an uncommon rate. Now, over 22 hours, I did manage 8,791 infernal ashes, which does come to 400 infernal ashes per hour. And after converting those to prayer experience, that does equal 87,410 prayer experience per hour. So despite being a less common drop rate than the Dragon Bones from Vindicta, I did actually manage to get those more frequently, but again, you can always expect discrepancies with drop rates when it comes to bossing. But despite that, I would say both bosses still hold up relatively decent methods of banking prayer experience if you are more interested in bossing and already have the supplies to do so, along with the fact there are the potential to get bossing pets, tier 85 weapons, and tier 80 armor. But that's about it for this one. I did try keep this one at a bit more of a manageable length to watch, so if you feel there was something I missed, feel free to leave that in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.